Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Regular listeners to the show would know we love talking about unusual and alternative investments. Stefan von Imhof, the co-founder of alternative investing community fund alts.co, ALTS.co, has talked us through investing in art, vinyl records, tequila, domain names, watches, even water, I think. Today, we're talking about investing in sporting teams. Obviously, this is general information only, and you should always seek professional advice before making investment decisions. Stefan, welcome back to Fear and Greed.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, one that we're going to start with, I know, is one that you guys are interested in. You've been in New Zealand recently. There's talks about a new NRL team, National Rugby League team there. Take me through that. Take me through the thinking behind that and investing in a sport like that.
So if there's one thing we've learned in our time studying alternative markets for the past 4 years now, it's that there's one alternative investment that kind of stands above the rest. It's the one that everyone tries to get into, and it's really, really difficult. And it's pro sports teams. Pro sports teams are, I cannot stress this enough, some of the world's most unfairly lucrative alternative investments, but they're also some of the toughest ones to get into. You typically, need tens of millions of dollars to even get a seat at the table. You need connections galore. So it's unlikely that most people are going to have the opportunity to invest in, let's say, a gridiron NFL team or a baseball team or something like that. But as far as sports investing goes, rugby is one that we find especially compelling. It's hugely popular here in Australia, UK, and especially in New Zealand. But here's the thing: despite all of the love for the sport, the 17 NRL teams, National Rugby League teams today, and only one of them is actually in New Zealand, and it's on the North Island. So there's a special group that's bidding to create the NRL's 18th team, and it's going to be on the South Island, the first NRL team on the South Island. So we have decided to put our money where our mouth is and invest with that group.
So what is it about sporting teams, be it the one that you're talking about, or, the world over, football, as in soccer, is hugely popular and very difficult to get into. Obviously, the American sporting teams are the same. What is it that is such an investment opportunity? Because in some ways, it's a bit irrational sport, I think.
It is a little irrational. Look, not all sports are created equal. Some are much more unfairly lucrative than others. I mean, NFL, for example, is just basically taking over the world. As an NFL fan, I'm totally okay with this, but that's very different than, maybe something like a pickleball team, which you could probably invest in with like $30, except it's not going to go anywhere. Other teams, other sports leagues, rather, are actually protected by law. So like in America, Major League Baseball, you're legally not allowed to create another league, a baseball league in America. It's in the law, right? So there's some special protections. But what we like about rugby is...
Stefan, I'm going to jump in there. So it's rugby league we're talking about here as opposed to rugby union?
That's correct, yeah.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I've learned the difference myself only in the past year. So, but I think what's interesting is the difference between rugby's popularity and the actual revenue. Rugby has a ton of viewers, but it has a disproportionately low amount of sponsorship revenue today. And that arbitrage, we believe, opportunity exists for the time being. It will close at some point. And so that's kind of what why we like it. We feel that rugby is basically undervalued compared to how popular it actually is.
Okay, so who else would be invested? Who buys these sorts of teams? I know that in the case of EPL, for example, in England, and certainly in US sports, often it's an owner. It's an extremely rich person who owns the team. Is that normally the way people invest, or is it more of a private equity investment? How do they run? Who are the investors?
It's funny. It's changing right before our eyes. I mean, sports teams used to kind of get passed down from family to family and ultra high net worth investors to each other, basically. That has definitely started to change. PE has been a huge part of that. PE has made a lot of moves. You may have heard in cricket, actually, especially in over in India with the IPL.
Yeah.
The big win that PE had was they bought the team from Rajasthan. I forget the name of the team, but they bought the team from Rajasthan, and they won in their first year. They won the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
So their investment went up like 26x overnight. So PE is starting to find its way into sports teams, over in Europe with football. Actually, in the NFL has loosened the rules around PE now as well. With this particular bid, it's pretty groundswell. There's a mix of different investors. There's some Hollywood folks, we can't name who just yet, that are getting in. But there's a lot of folks from our community. There's a lot of just rugby fans who are well off, who want to bring a team to life on the South Island. And we think they've got a pretty good shot. There's two other places that are bidding to be the 18th team as well. One is out in Perth, and the other is up in Papua New Guinea. So it's basically between Perth, Papua New Guinea, and Christchurch, South Island, New Zealand. One of those three teams will be the 18th NRL team.
Stay with me, Stefan. We'll be back in a minute. I'm speaking to Stefan von Imhof, co-founder of alternative investing community fund, alts.co. Okay, so where do you get your money back from, Stefan? So I get what you're doing. How do you get your money back?
So really, it's through sponsorship revenue, right? And so this is, again, where we feel that there's a disconnect between the number of eyeballs that rugby has and the revenue per eyeball that it has compared to other sports. So that's why we think this could be a really good opportunity. But yeah, it's basically all about the sponsorship revenue and the sponsorship rights. It gets into a very confusing world. The world of media rights and sponsorship rights gets pretty intense outside the scope, I think, of this call. But that is primarily where you make your money. There's also merchandising, there's ticket sales, there's licensing. You've seen what's happened with the big sports, the Major League Baseball sports here in Australia. Every time I walk by a cap store, a hat store, it's all like New York Yankees, Boston Red Sox. They're getting cut of every sale, right? So merchandising can be a huge part of this as well. But primarily it's through media rights, sponsorship rights.
And is that so? The Rajasthan team, I think they're the Rajasthan Royals, I think, from memory. The fact that PE got into that and they bought it, success matters then, I presume.
Yeah, I mean, the brand matters, but brand is based on success ultimately. I mean, brand can only take you so far. I think that some brands have routinely gotten lucky with having a great brand without having a ton of success. Others have been kind of riding their success for a long time, and the brand has kind of held the value. But generally speaking, yeah, you do kind of want and need to do well, as you'd imagine. Yeah. Although I don't think people expect it on day one or season one or year one. But, the team behind the South Island bid is putting a lot of emphasis on the ground up, so that the training programs and the social programs, that's a big part of this. Finding supply, finding rugby players isn't something that just happens on its own. That's something you have to build as well. So part of the funds go to programs like that to really build for the long term. And that's another thing I like about this opportunity.
Okay, so what are the big risks here? One being that they don't actually, they give the team to Papua New Guinea or Perth, obviously, that's a big risk. But what else are you talking about when you're looking at the downside?
I mean, yeah, the biggest risk is that this doesn't work and the bid goes to one of the other two teams, which is absolutely a fundamental risk. I do personally believe that South Island has the best chance. And one of the reasons for that is there's a gorgeous new stadium that's being built in Christchurch. It's actually under construction now, and it's going to be done in 2026. It's called Te Kaha Stadium, and it's going to house 30,000 rugby fans. And actually, the New Zealand government basically footed the bill for this. So the infrastructure is already in place, or it's going to be in place in 2026. So that's one less risk you actually have to worry about with this bid, which is fantastic. But in terms of other risks, I mean, yeah, look, it's sports teams that are started from scratch are very different than buying, again, like the New York Yankees or the Boston Red Sox with a long history of extremely high revenue. It'll take time for things to get going. And that is not something that we should ignore. But, what I like about sports investing the most is not only can you get a return, but you get so many externalities and extra benefits from really investing in something that you can not only, believe in, and get a return from, but actually watch on TV, go to the stadium live, and know that you were a part of it all, which is tremendously powerful.
So what are the best, if you could invest in any teams in the world, what would you invest in? And you unlimited money here, Stefan. I mean, personally, I'd certainly go Yankees, Knicks, any New York team, probably the Jets. Might not be a Jets fan, but, I'd go that way. What would you invest in if you could, as an investor, not with your heart, with your mind?
Ooh, taking the heart out of it, huh? Well, I'll tell you, look, the Yankees, I think, are basically the strong. I mean, having lived in Australia now for 5 years and just seeing how much Yankees gear there is here, people that may not even follow baseball that closely that are just wearing the gear, it just makes you realize how powerful globally the Yankees brand is. However, I was born in Boston and I grew up in Boston, so I would never in a million years invest in anything New York related, especially the Yankees. So I would go with the Red Sox.
Righto, Stefan. I had enjoyed having you on the show until that very moment. I lived in New York for a while, you see, and became a great Yankees fan. And my neighbour was a season pass holder. And there are so many games. There are like 70 home games a season. He was always looking for someone to go with him. And, I was working from home. So I became a Yankees fan. And the only thing the thing I learned more than anything is that you've got to hate the Red Sox.
You have to. I won't hold it against you. We can still be friends.
Oh, good. Stefan, thanks for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thank you.
That was Stefan von Imhof, co-founder of alternative investing community fund alts.co. That's alts.co. This is the Fear and Greed business interview. Remember, this is general information only, and you should seek professional advice before making investment decisions. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, a daily business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.